So when Don told me that I was going to be the speaker before lunch, I was trying to think of, as you see, what kind of tough audience I would be facing. But then I realized you're, at least in the last few months, the second toughest audience that I've faced. And I want to tell you about the first, because frankly, in all due respect, they matter a lot more to me than you do. They were a class, they do have to go back on Monday, of fourth and fifth graders. In absolute reverence to the school district here, they go in a school district over in that place called LA Unified. Oh, please. So at LA Unified, there's a school called Westwood Charter Elementary. And my daughter, Marissa, my younger daughter, the 10-year-old, is a fifth grader in a class that's combined with fourth graders. And Miss Tom, their teacher, is frustrated by the quality of the education provided not only at Westwood Charter, but in her experience for many years, hearing at many schools at that level, the frustration is with how do we get these kids to understand early enough in their life as to the importance of communication. So Marissa went and told Miss Tom that I sort of work on this with people, and Miss Tom said, oh great, Daddy gets to come to school and tell kids what he does for a living. So there I was in front of that tough audience last November, and you can imagine, 35, yes, crowded class, 35 fourth and fifth graders right after recess wanting to hear about public speaking. So there I was. So I knew, and they said, oh, well, you know, you got plenty of time. You've got like 45 minutes. And I thought, this is going to be great, right? There's nothing better than a room full of sweaty children who want to sit and, oh God, here comes Marissa's dad. So here's what happened. I proceeded to tell them a story, which I'm not going to tell you. Oh, please. I'm actually going to tell you a couple others to frame the real challenge that we all face in this room. The first story I actually didn't discover till a few months later after that presentation. And it's a little paragraph inside of a book that came out in January written by Dr. Atul Gawande at Harvard University called the Checklist Manifesto. And the Checklist Manifesto is based in a set of research that was done with surgical teams who said to themselves, you know what, we don't communicate very well. What can we do to improve it? And the World Health Organization commissioned a study that took place over 8 hospitals around the world where each surgical team needed to use a checklist of how to communicate with each other and what the expectations were and how you, regardless of the position that you held in that operating room, the obligation you had to bring your expertise, your confidence, and your insights to that surgical room, because when they weren't doing it, bad things were happening. At the end of the research, they found that because of improved communication, you know what happened? Deaths in these 8 hospitals, in those surgical suites, dropped 50%. In those same surgical suites, mistakes of cutting on the wrong leg or bringing too little anesthesia dropped by over, I believe, 60%. I didn't tell the kids that story. But think about what it matters to you. You know, in all due respect to all the speakers who have come before, as you will soon notice here, I have no slides. You know who I have? I have you. Because I have you to be looking at the choices that you make as communicators, at hopefully, as we go through this for the next few minutes, a more fundamental level than what we do with our hands, or how we stand on a stage, or what button we have to push, whether or not it might or might not work. Right? I have you to think about this, because here's the next story. After finding in that research that the nurses in that surgical suite felt an obligation and experienced what Johns Hopkins University called an activation phenomena. They felt more confident to speak up, to call out even to the most egomaniacal surgeon, "Doctor, you're cutting on the wrong leg." It seems funny at one level, but what would have happened had that nurse behaved like my client in Culver City, who runs a multi-billion-dollar organization, and that client confessed to me when she got feedback about her leadership that she knows that the most important thing she could do is that she give people, as difficult as it may be, that her greatest leadership challenge, and think if you're that different than the leadership challenge this person faces, her greatest leadership challenge was to crack the mystery and the fear, yes, fear, she said, about telling someone that they need to improve their performance, that maybe they come across too arrogantly, that they don't listen very well. And when I confronted this executive with that feedback and I said, "Why don't you do it?" She said to me, "Well, the problem is when I envision, when I think, when I check my belief about what's going to happen if I do that, I actually envision the person dying." Dying. So can you imagine how rare she approaches this opportunity, right? But that's the problem. I got those 4th and 5th graders. I got those nurses that are saving lives. And I've got the head of a billion-dollar company who thinks she's going to kill people with the way that she communicates. It is only slightly funny. Because here's the problem. You say to yourselves, especially with this lovely theme of helping our children, whether it's with solar power or whether it's with getting them to send you a text and bring you their ideas, all of that with absolute reverence to Zach and all of his colleagues, you're going to come up short. You are going to come up short because it is not about the speech. It is not about what's on the slide. It is about the conversations that you engage in and the actions that you take at the end of it and beyond it. And we'll tap into a couple behaviors in the next couple minutes that will get you there. But as I was examining the way that people, especially at a young age, like Marissa and her friends, and even going on the Conejo website to show the curriculum of the elementary schools here, you know what you find? You find that, like for many adults, the kids are confronted predominantly with the opportunity to learn about communication. How? They learn about the way to place themselves non-verbally. They learn about the way to construct an argument. They learn about almost a mechanical approach to communication for the most part. And it takes people like Zach and Adam and Winnie and all the rest of the people to stand up here and make it not about the mechanics, but make it about the connection and the importance and, yes, the belief of what they are here for. My question for you, is that what you do? And if it isn't, I think I know why. I will tell you that the reason is because we are raised too often, especially as older folks, we are raised in an atmosphere and a culture of fear. The number one fear that most people face in their lives is standing up in front of a group of people and giving a talk. But we're told that. You go on the web to figure out how to deal with it as an adult, and you get barraged with opportunities to lessen your fear, to make the butterflies fly in formation. That's what you pay the $29.95 for, to give you cute, impractical metaphors that aren't going to get the job done in a way that makes a difference, and hopefully in a way that keeps you from thinking about how hungry you are right now. Here's the point, though. We do that to our children. How many times has your child or your niece or nephew come to you and talked about an important presentation, and we sort of gave off that little moment of how nervous we were when we had to speak to them? That's when it gets difficult. So here's what I suggest. And do I have a plan and a program and 3 action steps? Absolutely not. because it's much more complicated than any cleanly packaged initiative can show you. It is something at a much deeper place that we have to go if and only if we want to connect in an engaging and difficult way. So what do we need to do? We need to hopefully, whether with ourselves as individuals or in our efforts to influence our children, we need to go to a deeper place of a word you've heard a lot today, and that is belief. Because it is by helping people, inviting them to develop and expand their beliefs about communication, not their behaviors, not where do you stand and what do you do and where do I look and how do I get that formation going. The problem with that coaching, ladies and gentlemen, is that it lasts you for a couple weeks because it is not grounded in that place of what they called before meaning. It is not grounded in that place of intellect, and it is not grounded in our heart. We think that the answers are in a book. We think that the answers are on that tape or with that coach, but they are not. Where they are, and where I wanted those 4th and 5th graders to understand, and quite honestly, I invite you to think about it and look at yourself. What is your belief about what it means to engage the difficult? To have that conversation that that executive is frightened to death to have. Well, I'm going to give you the 2 things you have to make sure you do. And quite honestly, at places like this, and a lot of places that I go, these are the 2 behaviors that are missing the most. And I simply ask, in the spirit of imagination, for you to engage in the process just for yourself, whether at lunch or with a friend after, to just imagine if we did this. Imagine if we did 2 things more. Along with people finding their place and their passion to speak, that we balance it with a curiosity. With a curiosity, not so that we can tell people how smart we are or what we stand for, but a curiosity in what other people think. And how do you tap that curiosity? You tap that curiosity, I told Marissa and her friends, you tap that curiosity with real questions. And you balance your ability to speak and getting through all of that. And you truly engage people with questions that show that you care as much about them as you do about the topic you are so passionate about. And if you can do that, you will then, and only then, start to engage in the difficult. If that executive would have taken the focus off of herself and her own mishigas of trying to worry about, ooh, what's going to happen to me, and located her concern and her leadership in that place of the needs of the people around her, she would move that organization so much farther. But I'm going to be fair to my own point. For my friends who are here, they will not be surprised by how I close this presentation. I happen to think there's a decent musician and singer by the name of Bruce Springsteen. And Bruce Springsteen sings a song that is the only song I ever sang to Marissa and Alexandra as their lullaby. And in Thunder Road, he tells you that if you want to go somewhere, that the door is open, but the ride ain't free. But you know what? He also tells you when he wrote that song that he was trying to put together an invitation for his audience. So I leave you with my invitation. Make a choice about your belief about communicating, about the value of listening equal to speaking, of questions equal to slides. And if you can do that, it is my belief through all my experience that you will make a difference. But I've got one better. Go ahead and don't choose it. Go ahead and don't listen, and don't ask more questions, and don't find that place of bravery that we so want for our children. Don't do it. Because then, and only then, you will have examined both sides of the choice. Obviously, I think you know the bias I have, the bias that I hope for Marissa and everyone else who has taken a moment in here to look at themselves. Thank you very much.